It's starting. It's starting. Welcome to another video. Right now, you may need these reviews and recommendations. It's getting close to Christmas time. Gift ideas, the like. But what I need is to take a nap cradled in the arms of my lover. And we can't all get what we want, can we? But lucky for you, I have these books. November was a pretty great month all around. I finished college. Hey, give it up. Thank you. Hey, stop. You're too kind. Please, stop. Stop. And I feel really good about my reading over the past month. I read 7 books, and I finished one book on December 1st. Which you're not going to hear about because I'm a stickler. So let's get into it. Let's get right into it. Let's jump in. Because we have lots to talk about. There's a lot of books to get through. First up, I read, and I have a physical copy for once, Freedom is a Constant Struggle, Ferguson, Palestine, and the Foundations of a Movement by Angela Davis. The one, the only, the GOAT, Marxist, feminist, philosopher, professor, Angela Davis. This is a particularly relevant read, as it has been since publishing, because of its focus on Palestine and Palestine's relation to other liberation movements, particularly as it says in the title, Ferguson. I think this book serves as a really great introduction to these movements and how they're connected and cannot be separated. There's one particularly stark example of how Palestinians hopped on Twitter during the Ferguson riots when police were using tear gas against protesters with tips and strategies on how to combat that, because they've been going through the same thing for years and years and years, and still to this day, although remarkably worse. And I think it should be needless to say, but it's absolutely necessary. Free Palestine from the river to the sea, currently undergoing a genocide, ethnic cleansing carried out by the apartheid state of Israel. Palestine needs all of our support now and forever. A temporary ceasefire, not enough. A permanent ceasefire, not enough. Palestine needs their land back, and they need liberation. And until they get it, we're not gonna rest, we're not gonna be quiet. And they will get it. Back to the book. Because it features interviews, talks given by Angela Davis, and short essays, it's really digestible. It's a smooth, easy read for anyone looking to get introduced to these topics, but also because it's interviews, short essays, and talks, it isn't really able to get too deep into it, which is okay. It's an introductory read. But that's the one kind of qualm I have with it. But if there's anyone who is interested in learning about Palestine and learning about the struggle of Palestinians and how it's related to struggles we're facing in Canada and the US, this is a really great place to start. I don't really feel comfortable giving it a rating. I feel like that would be a weird thing to do, but I feel like I've adequately communicated and conveyed my thoughts on it. But yeah, read anything you can by Angela Davis, and that's, I'm not asking, I'm telling you to do that. The second book I read is probably the weirdest I've ever read, and that's Earthlings by Sayaka Murata. Trigger warnings for discussions of incest and sexual assault, both involving minors. I'll give you a timestamp here that you can skip to if you don't want to hear about that. Valid, of course. But I'll also give you a short summary without any spoilers, without any discussions of this stuff. So I'll do that now. If those two previously mentioned topics are triggering to you, don't read it. Don't read the book. Not worth it. Other than that, it's weird, it's oddly goofy, and it's really absurd, and it consistently hammers its main points home. But yeah, I'm gonna start talking about things that specifically happen in the book, so skip again to this timestamp if you don't want to hear about it. Yeah. So this book follows our main character Natsuki through two main parts of her life. First, as an adolescent who visits her family every summer up in the mountains. Then, as an adult who lives a peculiar lifestyle with her husband. The quotes are important, I'll get back to that. And this eventually leads her back to the mountains that she spent so much time in her youth. During those trips with her family, she began dating her cousin Yu, which culminates in them attempting to have sex one night. Then being caught by the rest of her family, and that blows up the whole family. They're separated, she doesn't have contact with anyone from the family for years and years after this. Fast forward to her life now, she lives with her husband, who she met online, looking for a person to act as her husband to get the pressures of her family and of society off her back for not having a husband. They live together, they don't sleep together, they don't have sex, they're essentially business partners. Natsuki has a lot of trauma to process. She has a poor relationship with nearly everyone in her family, even previous to the incident with her cousin Yu, apart perhaps from an uncle who features throughout the book, and she was sexually assaulted by a teacher. Her way of coping with these events kind of come in two forms. The first being a toy stuffed animal who she believes is an alien from the planet Popopia, I think is how you say it. I have only seen the word written, obviously. Yeah, so alien stuffed animal who gives her instructions every once in a while, tells her what to do. The second form of coping is disassociation, where she removes herself from her body in order to not experience these events so personally. These two things combine to allow her to kill the school teacher who abused her. And she eventually runs away with her husband to the mountains and meets up with Yu again. Now they live together, the three of them, intentionally trying to break down society's conventions, as they all got their issues with it. I got issues, you got them too. I got issues. It gets absolutely batshit wild up at that house in the mountains. Oh my word. She and her cousin Yu, who also believes he's an alien from planet Popopia, and always has, who also has a lot of trauma, they just want to go home to this alien planet. And who can blame them? Honestly, can we blame them for wanting to go home? It sucks for them here. This was, yeah, like I said, batshit wild. Yeah, I don't know. I read the book. There's words on the pages. That's all I can tell you. I gave it 3.5 stars. Usually I do books, I make these videos with the books in order of my reading them, but right now I make an exception, because a couple books in advance, from Earthlings, I read Sayaka Murata's first novel, published in 2016, Convenience Store Woman. This one, though without so many explicitly triggering scenes, settles into a few of the same themes as Earthlings. Kyoko, pronouncing it wrong probably, apologies, is 36 years old and has been working at a convenience store for the last 18 years. Something that's both uncommon and frowned upon. She only has a small group of friends from school times who she sees, as well as her sister. She's never been in a relationship, and she devotes all of her being to this convenience store. I absolutely adore the premise of this book. And honestly, I really enjoyed just reading about her working in the convenience store. It's predictable for her, it's familiar, she knows that today it's a few degrees hotter, so we need to restock this item. Or it's this time of the year, which means this item is particularly popular. Murata uses Kyoko's story brilliantly to illuminate the pressures of conformity and thus isolation in contemporary Japanese society. This made me laugh out loud at times and was really well written. My critique, I suppose, is that there are some pretty significant themes that overlap a lot with Earthlings, and this is what's led me to give them probably both lower ratings than had I just read one and didn't know about the other. For example, both novels feature a female character who begins an asexual relationship with a weird guy to get their families off of their backs and end up being pursued and tracked down by these families. So it got a little bit repetitive, a little bit predictable, unfortunately, especially having read them so close together, and I'd like to see something a little bit more different from Murata in her next work. But I did prefer this over Earthlings, so 3.75 stars. Woo! Next up, I read Daughters of the Deer by Danielle Daniel. First of all, what a name! Are you kidding me? Second of all, she went to university at UBC, which is kinda local to me, which is cool. Woohoo! This is a really, really wonderful piece of historical fiction. Let me put the picture up there. Tracing back 12 generations of the author's maternal family line. It follows Marie, an Algonquin woman in 1657 who is forced by the circumstances of colonialism, specific to her region, being threats from the Iroquois and the British, boo, the British, to marry a white man, a French white man, Pierre. After taking us through this tumultuous, to say the least, part of Marie's life, we fast forward to when her eldest child, daughter Jian, is 17. So this is now in math 1675. Now Jian is quickly approaching the age where she needs to be married off, or the family will have to pay taxes to the government, or and will face social consequences. But little does Pierre know, at first at least, Jian's gay. Jian's hella gay. Marie doesn't even know this at first, though she has her suspicions. Now, Jian and Marie are such powerful, lovable characters that you root for defiantly. You need them to succeed. And against such dire circumstances, some of the most difficult circumstances imaginable, you see the conflict between Pierre's close-knit affiliation with the Catholic Church and Marie's indigenous wisdom, which recognizes Jian's two-spiritedness as sacred and as a gift. Now, this is a genre of fiction that I don't typically read, a genre and style of fiction that I don't typically read, but good golly oh my, I was blown away. What's particularly impressive about this is that this is Danielle Daniel's first work of adult fiction. She's previously written children's books and a memoir. Needless to say, I will be on the lookout for any more of her work in the future. And I'm honestly pretty intrigued and might just find her children's books. Like, they look great from my little perusing on her website. All of this coming from me in Value Village, judging a book by its cover, which you should do sometimes. Yeah, 4.5 stars. Amazing. The next book I read was Luster by Raven Leilani. This is one I've been wanting to read for a long time and finally got around to it, and I loved every second of it. It follows our main character Edie, who's in her 20s, as she gets into a relationship with an older married man whose wife is aware of this open relationship and is okay with it, though there are some rules. She loses her job, works as like a DoorDash career for a bit, and then gets invited to stay with the wife in their house by the wife. What? needless to say, some tense and intriguing dynamics unfold. Obviously, living with the man's wife who you're sleeping with is something, but also, and perhaps more interestingly and engagingly, their adopted daughter, Akila, who is black, as is Edie, and that sort of racial tension between Akila, who's their foster daughter, who hasn't really seen a black person before, and now sort of her foster dad's black mistress living in the house. So Edie takes on this kind of pseudo role model role. This is a steamy, engaging, delicate, at times unpredictable, and always addictive read. I wholeheartedly recommend this one. It was so great. 4.5 stars. Again, that's 2 in a row. Wow. And now we have Brokeback Mountain. Let me just say, this would make a great movie. Do I need to summarize the plot of this? Gay cowboys? There you go. You got it. That's it. It's a short story, only 50-ish pages. Honestly, I kind of think hurts its quality. I would have liked to see more backstory and different perspectives on the characters and what they're feeling inside as opposed to just their actions. Especially with Jack Twist, which, side note, the gay cowboy name. Are you kidding me? Jack Twist? Girl. Despite this, though, it's a really great short story, of course. Absolutely worth a read, and was a pretty fascinating look into what life must have been like for gay men in this period of time. So I gave it 3.5 stars. And now, for this video is getting a little bit long, I think. For the last book I read in November, this is a short story collection by an author I've talked a lot about on this channel in these videos, and to mixed reviews, and that is Homesick for Another World by Otessa Moshfegh. I obviously loved my year of rest and relaxation. I've said that plenty of times. I enjoyed Eileen. Wasn't a huge fan of Death in Her Hands. I think it would have been better as a short story. And Lapvana was gross. So I was really looking forward to this. And that follows, yeah. It took me a little bit to get into, but around, once like the 6th story, once I was around there, I was enthralled. I couldn't put it down. There were some really amazing short stories in this. I went to the Japanese House concert in Vancouver, and I brought the book because I bring a book with me wherever I go, and I was reading it. I was reading it before the concert started, and I felt like, one, a nerd, and also I felt so pretentious. But I was in there and I was waiting, so I can go on my phone or I can read a book. So my favorite stories, let me read them off, because I have a lot of favorites. The Weirdos, The Beach Boy, Nothing Ever Happens Here, The Locked Room, and the last story, A Better Place, are all, to me, incredible. So good. I loved every second of those stories specifically, and I also really liked a lot of other stories that haven't been mentioned by me. There was, however, a really low point with No Place for Good People. I hated that story, but I don't want to harp on it too much because that was kind of an outlier for me. Moshfegh continues to write these awful, weird, absurd characters doing awful, weird, and absurd things in a kind of bitter and punchy way in these stories, and every single ending is crafted to perfection. Every single one. It's amazing. I had a lot of fun with this. I laughed out loud at certain points, especially at the boyfriend in The Weirdos. Cause yeah, I gave this 4.25 stars. And that's all I read in the month. We're getting into December now, which means a couple of things. It means I'm gonna be getting a lot of books for Christmas, hopefully. If you've seen my list, you know. Only like 3 people have seen my list. Whatever. And maybe some end of year stuff. Comment or just text me. Let me know if there's videos. I'll probably ask this on my Instagram too. If there's recap videos you want to see, favorite books that I read, least favorite books that I read, books I want to read in 2024. That's messed up. Things like that. Thank you for watching. As always, like, subscribe, hit the bell. Yeah. Bye.